So whoever Hey guys, thank you so much for joining in. We'll be starting in a while. We'll start at sharp at 4 p.m. Good evening, everyone. I am really delighted to see such a large gathering. So, this is Prithvi working as Senior Associate HR at ZIS Partners. So, today we present to you the third episode of this talks. I take this sincere opportunity to welcome you all and most certainly expressing my gratitude for being constant audience for ZIS Talks. So, before we begin, let's quickly go through the guidelines for the webinar. The content discussed and presented belongs to solely to ZIS Partners. To ensure quality, both chat and mic have been disabled. The chat will be open following the end of the discussion for question and answers. For technical support, get in touch with Sudham, our IT support admin. Please note down the contact number displayed on the screen. Employees are a company's greatest asset. They are your competitive advantage. Resonating this is important whether you're running a multinational corporation like Xerox or a small startup firm. However, large Fortune 500 firms arguably have a much easier time attracting talent. Startup businesses need to use their ingenuity to attract the best talent. The challenges faced by the founder when they look to build their startups are far too many to count, but the most challenging one is hiring the right people and the right talent. Today, we are going to discuss a lot about startups and the first best talent, the challenges, the attributes, and a lot more. So, without further ado, we will now turn the time over to Shweta Singh, who will now be presenting a sneak peek into an overview of ZIS Partners for your understanding.
Hi everyone, good evening. Shweta Singh here as Senior Manager Business Development representing ZIS Partners. It's pleasure speaking with you all on this platform. Here, I would like to introduce ZIS Partners Leadership Hiring Initiative by Zoin. And it's not a normal executive search firm, but a new technology-driven executive search firm with seasoned team of professionals having a strong pedigree. We are pioneers in recruitment industry and standing tall since 17 glorious years. As a matter of fact, Zoin has close to 700 plus customers with 450 plus experienced associates who have successfully closed over 300 leadership positions in a span of only 5 years. Also, we are the most preferred hiring partners to a diverse clientele, including startups, unicorns, technology product companies, captives, and IT services companies. Moving on to the most important aspect of how ZIS Partners is different from any other executive search firms. We aimed for not being any other executive search company, but we would like to disrupt the traditional approach for existing traditional executive search firms by being a new technology-driven executive company, by developing technologies in-house using artificial intelligence. Back then, hiring a leader or closing a senior role takes close to 6 months or a year many a times. Here in ZIS Partners, we tend to lower that duration to 30 to 45 days, keeping accuracy in mind along with the speed. ZEST has talent advisory, whose industry expertise helps us in evaluation and consults us in for our clients. Having said the difference, let's throw some light on our approach. There are 5 key parameters which ZEST follows. For any project to be successfully executed, first and foremost important thing is strategy, wherein we set the process, methodologies, project parameters, expectations, calibrate benchmarks, and comprehend with clients' involvement. Feature that develops understanding and decision-making is research, and so is our next step of approach, which includes market mapping, identifying potential candidates, talent landscaping, adding customized notes, and evaluation using machine learning, and in-house built technologies as we aim to be technology-driven executive search firm. Our third parameter of approach helps us in engagement and building relationship with the candidates, which is outreach, wherein we speak, advise, suggest, pre-screen the candidates whose interest and role fit according to clients' expectations using our talent advisory industry experts. The most important aspect, which is for mutual benefit, is decision. That includes collecting feedbacks, reference checks, background checks, and helping in guiding client for evaluation. Now comes the final stage of our approach, that is close and grow. Here, we help our clients in candidates placement, building relationships, gathering feedback, and most importantly, their satisfactory scores, keeping the evaluation in front of us, which is done by our seasoned team of experienced professionals. Moving to our next slide, here are some of examples of mandates we filled in respective domains. Also, some names of our clientele for whom we were successfully able to close leadership roles. Which brings us to the end of our presentation. Thank you so much for having me. Feel free to contact us for exploring leadership hiring avenues. Have a great day ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shweta. So before we move forward with the session, let me put our speakers into the limelight. So we have Raghunandan Ji. Raghunandan is a founder and CEO of Zolve, is a well-known entrepreneur and an angel investor. Before Zolve, he built taxi aggregator Taxi for Sure, which was acquired by Ola Cabs in 2015 for $200 million. Raghu has been an angel investor in over 50 startups following the successful exit, including Vedantu, Bounce, and NinjaCard. He is also an active participant in India's startup ecosystem and frequently mentors aspiring entrepreneurs. In 2014, Raghu was among Fortune India's 40 under 40 business leaders and has also been honored with the IIM, a Young Alumni Achiever Award. An avid reader, he is also a marathon runner and an Ironman triathlete. I delightfully welcome you, Raghunandan. Due to unavoidable circumstances, Abramaya will not be joining us today. Replacing him, we have Rakesh Ranjan. Rakesh Ranjan is the managing partner at Zoin. He graduated from one of the India's top universities, the University of Delhi. Having over a decade of experience in recruitment, Rakesh is an expert in setting up recruitment strategies and processes for his customers. He has helped various organizations hire the right leaders and has assisted multi-companies set up their teams from scratch in India and globally. Rakesh is an avid athlete, is a regular marathon runner and a cyclist and has participated in several prestigious races in India. A very warm welcome to you, Rakesh.
Thanks, Prithvi.
Good. We also have Anuj Agrawal, the moderator of today's session, the founder and CEO of Zoin's India's leading recruitment firm. Zoin is rated among the top 50 recruitment firms in the country and is among the fastest growing recruitment firms over the last 3 years. Under his leadership, Zoin has won several awards from various platforms like LinkedIn, Great Companies, Owler, IIM Jobs, Suno, etc. He is currently in charge of developing Zoin's strategy and work closely with all the organization's functions to achieve the vision of Zoin. Besides leading Zoin, he is also an angel investor and has invested in several startups. Anuj holds BTech degree from National Institute of Technology, Karnataka, Surathkal. A very grateful welcome to you, Anuj.
Thank you, Prithvi.
So we shall now move forward towards the most exciting part of the session. To give you a heads up, if you have any questions during the presentation, please type them in the Q&A box in your Zoom control panel. You can see the Q&A box icon at the bottom of your screen. We are also streaming live on LinkedIn through the Zoom account, LinkedIn account. The link is shared in Q&A box. The live viewers can also drop your questions in the comment box. The questions shall be taken by the panelists post discussion. So now I respectfully invite Anuj to take over the session.
Hey, thanks, Prithvi. Really excited about our third episode. I think we're just getting started, and having 4,100 attendees or 4,200 attendees is something which is quite inspiring for us. Very excited because I have a friend as well as someone whom I've known from college days, Raghu. not only my batchmate, but I think he's one of the most well-known new age entrepreneur as well as an angel investor. Along with him, unfortunately, Apramaya could not join us, but I think my partner Rakesh is in. And Rakesh obviously has worked across a lot of our customers, which start from startups to Fortune 500 companies, and help each of these customers solve their hiring challenges. So I think his expertise will definitely make a lot of value add to our conversation. And yeah, I mean, looking forward for the event today. Looking forward for a very, very useful session.
Hey, thanks, Anuj, for all the kind words, and lovely to catch you here. Yeah, you've been a great friend since college days. After several years, it's good to be on a panel with you.
Glad to know that. So I'll move on to the core of the discussion. I think there are a lot of participants waiting for us to get started. So I think everybody knows the current standpoint in terms of what is happening around hiring, and there are companies which are going through a lot of challenges. And today, our core of discussion will be about attracting top talent and leaders to startups. I think it's not just attracting, but I think it's also about hiring. So attracting is one, like grabbing attention, but I think it's mostly about hiring. So we'll start our discussion with Raghu. Raghu, I think someone who has ran Taxi for Sure, build it from scratch and take it to a very, very meaningful exit, probably one of the best exits during that time. Then taking the next plunge in Zolve and building the team, which is also very inspiring that you've been able to build a great team. And so I would love to hear from him his perspective of how the challenges evolved. I mean, I think Taxi for Sure happened around 2015, 2016, or probably a little before that. And Zolve is more recent. So I'm sure you would have seen a lot of evolution over the challenges regarding attracting top talent for you. So would love to hear your perspective on that.
Oh my God. It's a tough question, Anuj. Right. So I'll probably give a long answer for this. And before that, some background. So when we exited Taxi for Sure, we were around 2,000 odd people distributed across 54 cities, and we grew pretty fast. I mean, we ran Taxi for Sure only for 3.5 years. We started in 11 and exited in 15, right? And in the short period of time, we had to hire a lot of people. So that's one. So some lot of mistakes there, right? And hopefully some learning. Post that, I've been an active angel investor in the ecosystem, been part of a lot of companies, and most of them are unicorns now. Right, I continue to help them in getting the senior leadership folks, right? So that is also some experience over there. And now, for the last 1.5 years, I've started Zolve, and this time around, I've done the team building a lot more differently than what I had to do in TFS. TFS no money, so I had to do it from bottom up. Zolve too much money, so I had to do it more top down. So yeah, made a whole lot of mistakes building Taxi for Sure. But this time around, I can proudly say that I'm not making those mistakes, but I've made plenty of newer mistakes this time around. So yeah, so there is the short answer is there is no right way. Right, and one learns from experiences and mistakes and things like that. So some learnings, right, while building a business there, right? So the first one was, I think, I'll probably talk about the cases than probably right, talking about how to go about doing it, right? So when we started Taxi for Sure, right, so there were a lot of problems, right, and whenever we think that we can come up with a solution, right, and we ask the team to execute the solution or implement the solution, right? So then there would be some challenges. So, right, solution would work for 95% of the cases, 5% of the cases it wouldn't really work because there's no perfect solution, right? And some people will make the 5% into 50% and do that. Let's say you use your resignation and you push it through, right? But the thing is, then you need to be inspire them, motivate them, follow up with them and stuff like that, right? It kills a lot of energy. So over a period of time, what we realized was, see, I mean, none of us are super smart, right? And it doesn't really require an IQ of 200 to really solve problems, right? And if we can come up with a solution, that means that we have a broader context about the problem than the team has. So if you are able to do justice to the context, right? If you are able to replicate the same context to the team, they should be able also be able to arrive at the same solution, right? And if they feel that it is their solution, right, then the 5% they'll downplay as 1%, right? Then because it's their solution, then you don't have to follow up and motivate and stuff like that. They will go ahead and get it executed, right? So that was my first learning that I had. So in that case, I started building the context. Right, people will come up with a solution. Then I say that 5% cases, how will you deal with it? No, sir, don't worry, it's only 1%. Let's go and get this done. Then it's like they sit through the night, right? What we thought would get in a month's time, no, which will get in the next 2-3 days only, because they feel that it is their solution. Right. Obviously, we're not building the startup to take credibility for each and everything that the startup does, right? So then that was okay. Then came the point in time where we had to scale aggressively. Right. So how do you get aggressive scale? Right. So then we started getting people from the taxi industry, right? So very few people. This was 2010, 2011, 11, 12 rather, right? So there are very few startups. So difficult to get people with startup experience. Right. So then either you get people from startup experience who know how to go work in a startup, or you get people from the taxi industry who are good at least they understand the domain. Right. So we started investing in those folks because we have to scale rapidly. Let them come with the domain experience. They'll help us. So, but there the challenge was, right, whenever we had a problem and trying to build the context, the people from the taxi industry is like, oh, the market leader only is at X percentage. We are already at Y percentage. There is no problem to solve. We are way better than the market leader. Why are we trying to hair split and stuff like that? No. See, we are disrupting the industry. We can't follow the market norms, right? We need to come with a fresh perspective, right? But they won't, right? Because they feel that we are way better than the market leader. We are super efficient. There is no problem to solve. So they will refuse to acknowledge the problem. And because of which even other people in the room would refuse to think, right? So then we thought that, okay, getting people from the industries may not be a great idea. Right. So then we thought that, okay, fine. So who are the people who will not have all this set market norms, set market conditions and stuff like that, right? So because you can't disrupt anything with people who have the market norms, right? So then we thought, oh, the best people are the people who are fresh graduates, right? They have no understanding about all the market norms. So then we went to different campuses, went to IITs, went to IIMs, went to all colleges and stuff like that, right? We got all these people, right? Right. So there is a problem. They will just maniacally go at it and find solution. So it was working, right? But the challenge is in a startup kind of an environment, right? Right. Unlike a Wipro, Infosys, TCS, or Google, Facebook, and stuff, where the distribution is homogeneous. You have similar set of people, right? Software engineers, engineering from different colleges, right? But in a startup, right, you have people who are engineers, or product managers, marketing folks, ops guys, and stuff like that. It's a completely different setup. It's not homogeneous. Right. For some people who are IQs are significantly better. Some people are very good at creativity. Some people are very good at execution and stuff like that. You put all these people together, right? The things that are obvious to certain people are not necessarily obvious to other people. So because of what used to happen, right? In the meeting room, the people would be like, the fresh graduates would be like, oh, itna bhi samajh mein nahi aata. To the ops guy, boss, tum kya samajhte ho? You are the smartest guy in the town. ठीक है, मैं meeting नहीं attend नहीं करूँगा. So you do whatever you want. So instead of solving these problems, right? We thought we have a good solution. It looked good on paper, right? No market norms and stuff like that. They will do this, but then there was a lot of friction, right? It's because of the expectation. Then we thought, okay, this is also not working out. Then we started looking at, okay, people with some experience who understands working in a team, how to get the best out of the people and stuff like that. That's how we set out to achieve, right? And that's where we started. So that's been a journey. Right, started with people from with the domain experience, moving to freshers, then moving to people from a different domain, but some few years of experience, so that, right, they don't have the market norms, but they know how to deal with people. And that's been the journey so far. So that's what happened. All right. So that's one. Second point was, I think when we started Taxi for Sure way back in 2011, right? What really happened was, I think being an entrepreneur was very close to being unemployed. These days, entrepreneurs are considered as rock stars, but then it was unemployed, right? If Pramay would have been on the call, right, he would have understood a lot better. The entire pipeline for finding brides got evaporated as soon as people figured out they became an entrepreneur, right? So it was not sexy to be an entrepreneur, and it wasn't sexy to work in a startup and stuff like that, right? So because of which we had to make do with whatever talent that we could find, right, and get those guys to really stick with us and things like that, right? So that's what. So we didn't have. So there was so much of talent available. Right, so we were Bangalore based. So much of talent available within Bangalore, right? But even though people wanted to, but then couldn't. All right, primarily because so my batchmates, we were what 28, 29 when we started. Most of my batchmates, right, had done their MBA, sitting on education loan. People who didn't do their MBA had a married, had a housing loan. Right, either way, Sweden. So then we shamelessly went after their younger siblings. They will not probably have commitment and stuff like that. So it was that bad. Right. So because of which, right, good talent was, we knew what a good talent was, but the good talent was not interested in joining us. Right. So then we had to make do with whatever talent that was available and started doing this. Right. The third biggest challenge was the product talent in India was extremely limited then. So we had to look at getting product talent from US, right? So you have a lot of Indians in the US working in LinkedIn, Dropbox, right? Facebook, Apple, right? So those people were keen to come back and work in India because their parents are getting older and stuff like that. They wanted to be closer to parents, right? And all those things, right? So they would come, they would interview with us, talk to the investors and stuff like that, right? So the thing, the biggest difference there I saw was when you're hiring somebody in India, you have to hire the person. When you are trying to hire somebody from the US, you have to hire the entire family. So we had to find a job for that guy's wife in India, right? Had to find schools for his kids in India. I'm using his because I mean that's been my experience. That's what, but right. So find a job for the spouse, find a school for this and stuff like that. And even then, they won't really join because they have the inclination, but they are not able to make the final no. So they are right. Whole lot of challenges. But over a period of time, what I've realized is that a lot of things have improved significantly. More number of people want to join startups. Right. So from a dearth of talent, we have plenty of talent. So their quality becomes a lot more important here, right? So the industry as such has significantly evolved from where it was then to where it is now, right? From scarcity to plenty. So from anybody to quality, right? A lot of things have moved, and even folks who want to work in startups, their expectations are also set. The kind of timelines that people have to work in a startup, right? Lack of process, lack of systems, right? Lack of policies, right? How do you do this, right? And with how do you put some method into all the madness? How do you really work in a chaotic environment and stuff like that? How do we balance the most imbalanced work-life balance? Right. So from work-life balance to work-life harmony, right? So these are the things that really keeps coming across. So we have in the last 10 years or so, I think we have there is a huge shift amongst folks to work in startups. The kind of expectation that people have on startups, and even the expectation the founders have on hiring such kind of talent, right? So there's been a huge shift. Long answer, Anush. So sorry for that, but yeah.
No, loved the long answer. I think we'll always look forward because it does tell the inside story, which while we do solve a lot of hiring challenges, but never get to understand the inside perspective. So always good to hear. And I think that's where probably the external perspective from Rakesh would be helpful in bringing up the discussion in a better way.
Sure, I think great insight, Raghu. I mean, we have never seen the other side, what Anuj was talking about. Definitely, somebody great said, many people repeat the past. I'm not interested and I prefer evolution. And that's what I have, I was able to go through when you were talking about it. You are learning from the mistakes which you made at the time of Taxi for Sure, and the way you are, doing it in a different way at Zolve. So I think, recruitment process or recruitment industry has seen a paradigm shift in last decade, I think in a decade, because we have seen a lot of success stories in startups. Like you were talking, when I was doing recruitment in 2008, I was doing for Flipkart. And when I used to talk to people, they used to say, no, I prefer working for Infosys rather than going for Wipro, going for Flipkart and all. So there has been a shift because, the way we have seen the success, the way in less than a quarter, the number of unicorns which we are seeing now, and the way we have seen is in 8 and 10, I think that there was a big difference in that. Although in terms of recruitment, I'll try to keep it very short. I think we have moved a lot from unstructured recruitment to a structured recruitment. And thanks to all the lot of new technology, new tools which have come in market, I think LinkedIn has played a very significant role now. I think a lot of people are available on LinkedIn who were not available at that point of time. So a lot of company are trying different ways of doing talent branding. I was going through Bellandur one day and I saw one Rippling board. Rippling was saying, Rippling is a company where engineers run the company. And that was the quote of the company. So I think a lot of company are trying to focus on talent branding, be it a MNC or be it a small startups also. I think like Raghu was talking about reaching the diverse and global talent. I think that also has increased a lot in last few years. Lot of assessment tool has come. I was working with one of the startup wherein and I was very surprised to see that they said, I want to do the first assessment should be on the cultural assessment. And they had almost 2.5 hours of assessment, which was only on the culture, why they should join the company, what they have done in past and all, what kind of work they were doing. And once they are through with this cultural assessment, that's where they used to start the interview, because they had a approach. There's no point in doing all the rounds of interview and then at the last coming and say this person is not a cultural fit. So that's what I have seen in last decade. That's from my end, Anuj. Yeah.
Great. I think internal perspective to an external perspective, but for me, I think internal and external both has been playing in, because I think we've grown from Zoin and I think particularly in last 3 years, we grew from about 100 people to today a 500 people company. So that's been quite a story for us. And I think we've actually come across scaling problems more in the recent times than in the past times, because I think we were a close knitted team then and a much more scaling team today. I think you're right. Technology has played a very vital role in disrupting recruitment across a lot of things. And while the reach, as Raghu said, is not about taking anybody, it's about quality now. I think that's what technology has been enabling in a much more faster way. Hiring, I think the biggest change across all of it is hiring is become faster every day. I think when people used to take a lot of time to today, people taking decisions within days or within half a day has been something which we are seeing as a very big phenomena. And plethora of talent available to be part of startups, but not everybody fits into the startup. That's something which is always there, right? I mean, those who are actually interested may not really meet your needs, and those who meet your needs may not really be interested. And that's going to be a constant challenge across any organization which is trying to scale up. Right. So great. I think different sides of story, but quite interesting. I'll try to move on to a next question and next kind of a query. And I think what is very important is when we hire startups, and I think probably a bit of that flavor was touched by Raghu while he was having the conversation of giving us an insightful story. And I think I've always been interested and talked about is that when you hire talent, I mean, and there is always a quick need of hiring, whether we want to hire young talent or whether we want to hire experienced talent, whether we want to have a functional or domain expert, or whether we want to have a disruptive mindset where they don't carry the kind of exposure. And every side has its own set of story. When you hire young talent, you feel a lack of maturity or lack of experience coming in. And when you hire experienced people, you don't want, you probably fail because either they are too costly or their mindset is like, yahi work karta hai, this is the standard, this is what we need to follow, not a disruptive mindset. So what is the mantra for hiring when you hire young versus experienced talent, Raghu? So how do you do that? What is there a ratio you maintain, or you go for pure young blood rather than having more experience and functional or domain or really experienced people? So what is it about hiring in startups, whether it's about experienced people or is it about young people, or is it a combination which you want to go with? And how do you decide what combination to go with?
Oh, there is no right answer. Right. But I think probably I want to answer the question with, I think the problem lies with God. All right. He doesn't make people make people who suit our JDs. The problem lies there. All right. If there were people who suit the kind of JDs that we have, no, life would have been a lot more easier. So it's very difficult to find people who essentially caters to the JD, right? So because of which we need to really make do with the thing. Right. So the way in TFS, right? So the way we went about building the team was bottom up, right? It was a pyramid. We started hiring completely, right? So then we started moving next level, next level, next level, next level, and stuff like that, right? So primarily because one, I think we didn't have we didn't have access to capital, right? And the second thing is people didn't want to really come and join also, right? And because of which it was good because you could think. Right, and there were a bunch of people to execute. Right, but what really happened is when the skills started hitting in, right, when we want to geographically expand and stuff like that, no? So we started in Bangalore. When we had to set up a Delhi office, no, we didn't really have any mid management to really go ahead and do this. Right. So then what happened was my co-founder Apramaya, right, was supposed to be part of the call. He went to Delhi. I was in Bangalore and things like that. Right, he knew the business. He went and just started setting up. But the problem that happened was every day the decision making in the company was extremely fast because whenever we had to make a decision, we were across the table. Now, when he moved to Delhi, right? So I had to call him. He's in a meeting with a taxi operator, a taxi driver, and stuff like that. Right? When he calls, I'm in a meeting with somebody else and stuff like that. Right? Entire decision making thing becomes extremely slow. Right. So that's when we realized that may not be the best way to do. We made a mistake of only hiring junior folks. We should have had some mid managers also who would really understand and stuff like that. Right. Our entire, because the market was responding so well for us. Right. The mobile penetration in India had increased. The app penetration in India had increased. Right. So more and more people wanted to use taxi services and the market was exploding. Right. And we were imploding because we didn't really have access to that. So that was a learning. So we should essentially build a team which has some mid management and stuff like that. So definitely now I've come to the realization that instead in a pyramid, right? Every hawk structure is a pyramid, right? Instead of doing bottom up, right? Right, we can't do top down, which is also a very, very bad thing, right? So everybody is strategizing, then who's executing, right? So bottom up is not the best approach. Top down is also not pressure. What is the thing? Then what we realize is it's lateral. Slice the pyramid laterally. Have some senior managers, have some mid managers, have some execution people also, right? So that's what we are now trying to do, right? So that when the scale hits, you have people who can possibly scale, and you have people who are hands-on also, and people are doing that. And so that's one, right? Which is very, very critical, right? That's pretty obvious. The second thing is because of lack of systems, lack of processes in a startup, and lack of documentation also, right? In a startup compared to a large corporate, right? What really happens is you make certain decisions which are extremely context sensitive. Right. But when you look back in hindsight, no, looks like suboptimal decisions. So because of which, even though if you start up bottom up and you get a senior leader later, they look at everything that is working and they feel that everything is suboptimal here. Right. Because so we as a founder, we are juggling a lot of things because when we had the senior guys, right, we feel that they should have joined 6 months back. You joined today, so you just take this and run with it, right? We don't spend enough time on right. And then there is this bottom set of people who also they know the context, but they don't think so that the context is so obvious for them. They think that the senior leader has been there, done that. All right, they would also know. So nobody is sharing the context with them. So what happens is they think that everything is suboptimal, right? Now, when you have these kind of layers, right? So they're also part of the context in which the decisions were made. Right. So if you take a decision independently, right, it is out of context, right? Looks suboptimal, but in the context, it looks probably as the right decision to make. Right. So then that context sharing, right, becomes a lot more easier, right? So that's the reason. Second one, for the second reason also, right? Context sharing also is super important. Right. The third part of it is if you do bottom up, right, what happens is the founders are moving up. Right, the execution people are there only, right? They will be probably move one level ahead and stuff like that, right? Then what you do is you start adding people in between. The problem is the execution guys already have a direct communication channel with the founders. Then you are getting these people in between who don't have the context and stuff like that. Everything is designed for failure. Because if this thing is not happening through the hierarchy, right? So what they will do is they directly use the channel that they have with the founders. Right. And the person who got you in between, who's talented and stuff like that, still trying to get a hold of the system, right? They feel that they're shortchanged because everything is happening without them around. Right. So they also feel out of place. So that's the reason we felt that so doing the lateral thing is a lot more important, easier, and stuff like that than doing a top-down approach or a bottom-up approach. Right. And that's where it is. So even people have to have a mix of this thing. So compensation, I understand that startups at early stages comp will be a different thing. There, the compensation is not cash, but equity. They have to play the equity card there. But as the startups start maturing and stuff like that, based on the kind of leadership that they want to hire, right, so then they can start looking at cash. But having having few levels, not too many levels, but having few mid-level guys, senior guys would really help, right, in sharing context in when the company hits scale, because everybody is planning to hit scale. Right? You don't start a startup because you don't want to hit scale, right? So if the scale comes to the business, then you have people who can help you scale, right? Context will happen. And third thing is the communication is also correctly made. And the culture of the company is right, gets built by getting people from different folks and getting it there, right? Culture evolves, right? Every new person who joins the team also, right, adds something to the culture. Right. So for all that thing, it's super important to have some few levels and doing it splicing the pyramid at a lateral level than doing it bottom up or top down.
Good. So Rakesh, here's your perspective. I mean, you've been working with so many startups, and each startup has a different leader, and Raghu has his mantra of doing things. Do you see a different approach by each one of them, or is it dependent on, say, kind of organization? Say you're an enterprise organization, you see a lot more people hiring, a lot more senior people. If it's a startup like a B2C kind of startup, you see more younger talent. What is the approach of leaders or organizations specifically around the startup, and what is your context to it?
Correct. Like Raghu was talking about, there is no right answer to this. It depends on the kind of organization. The founders of the organization also depends on what kind of skills they are bringing. So let's say I'm trying to run a tech company, and I'm not a seasoned tech guy. At that time, I have seen companies first hiring a tech leader, and then start working on the first hiring a tech and product leader, and then start building the product from there. So it can be top to bottom approach. A lot of places we have seen the founders and co-founders themselves are tech savvy, or they have a great technical bent. So that's where we have seen they start building from the mid to senior level of hiring. And it again depends on where do you stand, right? Talking about a lot of enterprise, I think they still have the sentiment they want to hire from top to bottom. I mean, enterprise always believe that, if you have not stayed in a company for around 8 years, you have not understood the technical engineering part. And that's where most of the enterprise company, which I have observed, they start from principal engineer, staff engineer kind of hiring, and then they go bottom. But if we talk about the business sentiment, Anuj, I think if the business is witnessing an average growth rate, and if the organization has sufficient time to train, I have seen them start hiring a lot of freshers. Is the one place wherein I've seen, they start hiring at the lower part of the pyramid. Other place like Raghu was talking initially was about, there is a position, but there is no one exists for that position. So what you do, you hire a fresher and you start training that person for that role, right? So these are the two approach which I have observed. Enterprise, always we have seen top bottom approach in most of the cases. Few of the places wherein we have seen founders having a bent more toward the product and business function, but not toward the tech. They have tried hiring the CTOs or the VP engineering first, and then they have moved to the other part.
So essentially, the skill gap which the founders see is what you are trying to point out to, I guess. So yeah, I mean, I have a I'm probably one kind of solution. I think everyone has a different kind of solution to this. I say every team is, to me, I get inspired a lot by cricket, big fan of watching cricket. So I say the successful cricket team is always a good blend of people, be it senior people, be it mid people, be it very young people. I think no championships are being won by your teams which were found by pure senior set of people or pure juniors. So right blend, right mix makes a lot of difference. And I think that's what generally creates outstanding teams, outstanding results. And I think that's what every organization tries to do. Obviously, if somebody is coming with experience, they will try to hire a younger set of people. If somebody is coming at a mid-level, they will try to see where the combination fits in. And that's how typically the story goes for a lot of organizations. Cool. So very different perspective for sure. Moving on to another interesting aspect for us, and I think it's something which is very important when we hire people, specifically when we hire leadership talent, and that's something which has always been a question. One aspect is, do you hire skills over attributes? The other question is, if you hire people at leaders, what attributes to look for when you are hiring, specifically when you are looking at startup? I mean, how do you go about deciding that this is a right talent? Do you measure there are certain skills which you need? Do you want to balance it, or there are attributes which you should definitely hire for? Because I mean, when you are a startup, you're usually short on resources, irrespective of even as much cash you have, or if you don't have any cash. Either ways, you will always have resource shortage or something. So hiring leaders, one, whether you look for skills or attributes or both, and if you look, and again, obviously, considering that attributes are going to be part of it, what attributes to look for when you are hiring for startups? So,
I'll go first.
yes.
So I think the first rule of hiring, again, very tough lesson that I learned building TFS, right? I think before you start hiring leadership roles, right? I think it's super important to first understand who you are, right? If you don't understand who you are, it's difficult to really make it work, right? So I'll give an example. So when we were building TFS, right? So our board introduced me to one amazing candidate, right? Amazing CV, right? Once they came on board, right? It was a struggle, right? So things were not. I didn't catch that. Could you try again? Sorry. So it was a struggle, right? So because of which I wouldn't really understand why the person had done phenomenal work previously, right? The investors are recommending this person, right? Why is this person struggling? Is the problem me, right? Because things are not working out between us, right? So then over a period of time, I realized that, oh, there's nothing. We are two different personality types. So that's where I understood the difference between goal-oriented individuals and task-oriented individuals. Right? Goal-oriented individuals are the ones who you give them a goal, right? You can disagree with the goal and you can discuss, debate over the goal. Once you align on the goal, right? They would prefer a free run to really get to that goal, right? The second set of people are the task-oriented people who have nothing to do with the goal, right? You tell me what to do today, right? I'll get the thing done. Right, and the world is full of these guys, goal-oriented and the task-oriented guys, right? The challenge happens when a goal-oriented leader ends up having a task-oriented individual, right? A goal-oriented founder ends up with a task-oriented leader. Then the founder thinks that as given the context and taken and align on the goal, but the task-oriented leader doesn't understand what needs to be done, right? Then so there's a lot of friction. Otherwise, first also, let's say there's a task-oriented founder ends up with a goal-oriented leader. So then it's also a challenge because then the goal-oriented leader thinks that this founder is micromanaging me. Why is that person not letting me there? Right? Goal-oriented founder and a task-oriented leader is like, boss, I have no idea what needs to be done. Why is this person not helping me out? Right? So that's where the big difference really comes. Whether you put it under the attribute category or the skill category, it's a different story. But knowing oneself is a lot more. It's probably the first step in probably looking at building a leadership positions, right? And for the role that one is hiring for, you need to really figure out whether you want a goal-oriented person or a task-oriented person. For example, right, financial roles, right? You should never get a creative guy. We don't want creative accounting. Right. So we just want people to stick to whatever that needs to be done, right? So it's super important. Knowing thyself is super important. Knowing for what kind of personality types is required for what kind of role is super important. Then the real thing starts, right? At different stages of the company where you are early and stuff like that, where you don't really have cleared roles and responsibilities defined. So then skill is not something that you may want to provide a huge weightage on. All right, so then it's only the attributes. In attributes, where I over-index the most is hunger, curiosity, right? And because I belong to the school of thought that none of us do rocket science, right? And none of us require a IQ of 200 to get things done. If somebody is hungry and somebody is curious, right? So they just excited by problem statements and they want to really find a solution. They can't sleep in the night if there is a problem bugging them and stuff like that, right? They go to bed with a problem, in the morning they wake up with a solution. People who just walk into the shower, right? In the shower, they come up with solutions, right? That hunger, the curiosity is what is more important, because we have tons of problems to solve, right? So that is super important, right? That's one. And second thing is, at least in the B2C startup, what really works is that falling in love with the data. Right? We're not talking about complex Excel models, building pivot tables and stuff like that, right? Just looking at the data and listening to what the data is trying to tell you, right? Listening to what the market is trying to tell you, keeping your eyes, ears open. That's where the not sticking to the market norms, right? Those things are super important. All right. And the third thing is, again, learning, which I mentioned in the first half of the conversation, right? That ability to deal with people, great interpersonal skills, because in a startup, you work with people across different kinds, right? So you need to have that. So you index heavily on attributes than on the skill. But as you start maturing and stuff like that, right? So then you start indexing more on the skill sets. Right? When you are, let's say, Series D plus company, then you need people for specific roles. You need a CTO who will go and do tech work only. You need a product guy who has a product affinity. You need an ops guy who runs ops and stuff like that, right? There you start indexing on skill sets also, but the attributes won't really change. Attributes are super important, right? But the underlying thing, as Rakesh mentioned, right? Culture. If it is like somebody's a culture misfit, is a completely no. So from doing the HR round at the last stage, right, of the interview process, that's when we start TFS. Right. So these days we do the HR round first. Right. So because right, skill set, no skill set, attributes, no attributes, right, culture misfit, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. Right. And that's how that's been my learning and how to go about right. And the first, I mean, probably hiring the talent is probably the easier thing, rather, not the easiest thing, easier thing. Keeping them, engaging them, and getting the best out of them, right, is even more harder, right? And if you're able to achieve that, right, so they would refer a lot of good folks, right? And we are as strong as the team that we build. Right, if the senior leader is happy, engaged, right, want to contribute and feel that they have a sense of ownership, it's not just it's not employment, right? It's being owner of the company. I mean, startups want ownership, right? If they do that, then they will know how to go about getting like-minded people, right, who they worked in the past and stuff like that, right? That is super important, right? Because we are not hiring one individual anymore. We're hiring the entire team that they worked in the past and stuff like that, right? That makes a huge difference.
Rakesh, your thoughts. I think you've been a recruiter where you help and you hired a lot of leaders for a lot of our customers. What attributes do you think outstanding to hire outstanding talent or leaders? What attributes are the customers going with startups? What has been the trend? What is your thought about it?
Great. I mean, I'll start, the attributes changes when you hire for a startup to the time when you hire for a MNC or a well-established company. Maybe the way, Flipkart was trying to hire a leader in 2008 and 10 has completely changed the way Flipkart hired a leader. Although maybe the roles and responsibilities, or maybe the scale which they are looking now is much bigger. So I always believe, when I try to do hiring for startups for the leadership role, one thing is we should always give the reason to the leaders why they should work for you. And that's the most important thing, like Raghu was talking about, they should know who they are before they're going out and trying to hire somebody, right? So it's very important when I have done hiring for a lot of startups and a lot of enterprise level startups and even for the B2Cs, I think the first most important thing is, are they aligned to what the organization is going to do? That's the most important thing. Let's say I believe that hyperlocal is going to be the next big thing, and I am talking to somebody who does not believe in that. I think that's the first place where in which we should stop the conversation, because there is no alignment in that. So yeah, I mean, the great vision without great people are irrelevant. I mean, that's not going to make any results to us. I think looking at more than intelligence, I believe we should look at diligence. Diligence should definitely there be in the leader. More than IQ, we should focus on the EQ, because I think startups learn a lot. Like Raghu was saying, the hunger, the fire in the belly. It's a EQ, right? I mean, you are really aspiring to hire aspiring to build something which no one has done, or you're trying to disrupt the entire ecosystem. So we have always seen that we also advise people that like Raghu was also saying, IQ is not that important, but I think EQ is important. Getting connected to the mission and vision of the company. Also observing how do they react to some of the instances which they have never seen in past. I mean, we have seen some of the organization wherein they give some of the case studies, wherein they say, let's say you have not done it ever, right? And you are doing it for the first time. What are your reactions to those ideas? I mean, let's say you're not worked on Python. Tomorrow you have to start working on Python. How will you start doing it? So what is the adaptability to the leader? How agile they are, how flexible they are when it comes to complete renovation of the way the organization was working few years back. So these are the few of the things which I have observed a lot of startups when they hire, they look for.
Well said. I think great. I think great inputs from both of you guys. Yeah, I mean, I think you guys have sum it all, but yeah, I think hunger does play a very, very vital role. I think you always hire for hunger purely because you have a mission to fulfill, you have a goal to fulfill, and hunger takes you very far. I mean, you don't want a filled stomach going to get you food, because they're not going to get you enough food. If you are hungry, you will find ways, you will find food in desert, you will find how to use cactus and take out food from it, take out water from it, or whatever. So I think hunger plays a very, very vital role in hiring. Diligence does matter. I think I've seen a lot of people who get very. By the way, I believe jack of all trades is something which is very, very, very important for startups, because when you start up, there are not many things which are fixed. Whatever you want to do might change, or you might have to put your hands into multiple things when you are at a scratch phase, or even not just scratch phase, but in a phase where you are about 50 people. There are always things which will always vary. And today you might do marketing, tomorrow you might have to do sales, third day you might have to actually go and do customer support. So being jack of all trades is something startups really work out for. Obviously, as you grow, you want master of each trade, because you want to see scale, you want to achieve greater heights. And I think that's the point of time you need masters. I don't think CTO, any co-founder hires CTO first until unless they lack technology bit completely. They usually, the co-founding team in most of the startups which I have seen, do the technology bit a lot of time, till the point they realize that they need a specialist who can drive it really, really seriously and take it really far, build really scalable systems to be able to solve your customer challenges, I think, or change the customer experience. And that's where I think things very well evolve. And jack of all trades to me is something a very high preference when we hire at a young stage of to my thought. Cool. Great. I think a lot of perspectives discussed. I think we've put this topic of attracting talent and top talent and leaders, and we've not talked too much about attracting. So I would put this final question before we move across to question and answer from other session. I hope we have time left with us. Yeah, looks like we have a little bit of time. We're probably running over the time, but yeah. So So how do you attract the first 50 talent? What are the strategies to attract, which Raghu, you did in Taxi for sure or in Zol, to so that the top talent is always excited to be part of it?
So interesting. I think one thing is depending on what team that one is hiring for, right? It's right. You can't have a single story to sell it to everybody. People have different perspectives. I think what one thing that I learned is majority of the startups work like five blind men and elephant story. All right. So the way everybody looks at the startup is so very different, right? How an engineer looks at it, how a product manager looks at it, how a ops guy looks at it, how a marketing manager looks at it, so different. So it can't be a single story that would really do this, right? And right at initially the first initial set of people, I don't know how many people. I mean, when you're hiring juniors, right? How many people even understand the business that you are in? All right, they come for the founders, right? How passionate they are about the idea, what are they doing with the idea, how are they doing it, right? So that they come for that bit, right? Not necessarily for the business and stuff like that, right? And the next set of people who come for with a little bit of understanding of the business and stuff like that, right? So they just want to really understand what's right, how the startup is growing, how the startup is scaling and stuff like that. That also matters. And if you're able to raise capital, right, who are the people who have backed the company? Who are the advisors of the company, right? So those things really matter. And what's the background of the founder in the past? What have they done? How have they been doing? Those things really matter. What I've seen is, I think most of the folks, right? Most of the founders, to begin with, they are extremely modest. Even though they have been there, done that, right? They don't talk about much about it, right? This over-index on the idea and stuff like that, where people don't even understand the idea, because they use the same investor pitch for to attracting talent. It's a huge mistake, right? You need to probably see what I've learned is right. Sadness is not contagious, right? If somebody is sad, you feel sorry for the person, but you will not share the sadness, right? If somebody shares a joke, everybody laughs, right? I've learned that passion is contagious. If someone is passionate about something, no, invariably, right, that rubs off on other people. If someone is depressed, no, it doesn't. You feel bad, sorry for the person, but you feel sense of negative energy, but other people around you will not get depressed. But someone is passionate around you, right? Everybody around you will get more and more passionate because they see things happening, right? It's the passion that one has in starting the startup, right? If they're able to figure out a way to articulate that passion or translate that passion into into other people that they're talking to, irrespective of the idea, because ideas are not constant. The team is constant. Ideas are dime a dozen, right? It's a team. I mean, people pivot, right? Some of the pivots really work out really well than the core idea. I think majority of the companies that have been successful have been pivoted, right? But the team stayed back. So the team is not being built because of the idea. It's not that, oh, you pivoted, I came for that idea, now you change the idea, so I'll go out. No, it doesn't happen. I came for you. Now you tell me, you told me to give me this direction, start running in the direction. Now you think that some other direction is better. I'm okay with that because I want to run along with you. That's I think is super important. Initially, it's a lot more about why you believe, who you are, and what you believe in, what passion that you bring to the table, right? And if you are able to figure out a way to translate that into this, hiring becomes a lot more easier.
Rakesh, your perspective.
Good to hear from Raghu's insight. I think I being a recruiter, I'll say, when you start hiring in the initial days, employ whoever is in your team as a recruiter. I think each one of your team members should be the brand ambassador. They should start hiring for you. I mean, it should not be like that. I'm a sales guy, so I can only hire a sales. So that I have seen. I think the first 50 hires happen a lot through the fame which you have, like Raghu was talking about, what you have done, where you have come from, what kind of investors are backing you up. So I think first thing is let's make sure everyone in your team is a recruiter, be it the founder, co-founder, CTO, even the interns who are there, they become a recruiter. Second thing which I have observed personally, a lot of company think we will start the branding at latter part of time. Let us first focus on building the product. When I say branding, employer branding, I think employer branding should start from day one, and the few of the ways of doing it by having a great interview process, creating a good candidate experience. A lot of time, maybe one of the candidate who couldn't make a cut, but they were really impressed with the founders and co-founders, the way they invested time. He go and talk to his peers and talk about, hey, I think this is a great company. Why don't you also try over there? So I think creating a great interview experience, ensuring the decisions are fast in your hiring, because more than talent need a startup, I believe it's the startup who needs the talent, right? So I think decision making should be very fast. And apart from that, they should connect with the mission and vision of the organization. In case they are not connecting, and even if they get hired in a very short span of time, they may start looking for a new job. I think they should have this agility. There could be different pivot, right? I mean, like Raghu was talking. I mean, we started with something, and then in due course of time, we realized this is something which is working out much better than what we were doing. So they should be very agile. They should have that tenacity to outgrow with the environment.
Cool. So yeah, I think you guys are summing up most of my perspective, and there is not much for me to share.
There is one thing that I want to add, Anuj, here. I think not the right forum, probably. So when I started building teams and stuff like that, I used to feel that should I pay these recruiters? Right, this super expensive and stuff like that, right? So they only help in discovering of talent and discovery through your references and stuff like that. You should be able to do that. They also do like search and things like that, right? Biggest mistake. Right, so there is a value that someone like a Zoin or any other recruiter would also bring into the table. It's not just discovery, right? Given their experience, so they have a far more wider reach. Right, they also provide a candidate perspective, also how the candidates are thinking through and stuff like that, right? And also helps us in positioning the company in a better way, given their experience in building all this. And they also help in assessing the candidate also, things that you may not necessarily be in that position. So at a period of time, I've realized that it's better to engage with recruiters than trying to do on your own and stuff like that. Right. Once the individual comes in, you can use the references of that individual to build it. But in order to really do that, I think it's worth every penny. It looks expensive because you don't want to really spend money on recruiters and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm not saying this because it's Anuj and he's been a friend and this conversation on Zoin and stuff like that. Because we're talking about hiring top talent and things like that. You should go to take help of people who have access to that talent, who have been able to place the talent in multiple different startups, who have that experience. I mean, we can see further only when we stand on the shoulders of giants. As far as talents are concerned, I think someone like Zoin or other recruiting agencies are giants in this field. So if you really want to build a great company, right, it is only possible if you have a great team. Right, and these are the people who help you in building a great team. So it's money invested. Initially, I used to think that it was an expense, but over a period of time, I realized that it's an investment. You invest in a relationship with a recruiter that has a far more bearing at a later date. So Anuj didn't pay me to tell this. So people, so people don't feel that it is a paid or a sponsored a comment or here. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I completely second your opinion because we built a company on that.
Oh, what a surprise! What a surprise, Anuj.
Cool. Amazing conversation. Thank you, Raghu. I mean, good. I would love to open this discussion and have people put across their questions. We have people joining in Zoom as well as in LinkedIn Live. So people who are in Zoom can put their question in the question and answer session. For the people who are LinkedIn, please use the comment session. Our team will be constantly reviewing your questions and trying to make sure that all the questions are put across to the panel. Obviously, in the interest of time, we will not be able to cover all the questions, but we'll try and make sure that we answer as many questions as possible to all our participants. So there's one interesting question, and we'll put across. I think, how does a no-wise person and young startup? I remember being 2 years old and starting a company. Probably a little less experience when I started our organization than Raghu, but how does a novice person between age and 18 to 22 attract top talent for their startup? Raghu, would you like to take this question?
Yeah, I think that is the right age actually to start companies, because you are so glued with the ecosystem, right? Most of your initial set of people will be your college friends. Right. So I think the kind of access to talent that people in 18 to 22 age group have, no. So that's not the kind of access that we would typically have. And there people are not right domain specific. It's not that I'm an engineer, I'm a business guy, I'm a marketing guy and stuff like that, right? So those are probably the guys who are extremely agile, right? As Anuj mentioned, right? Jack of all trades. So people pick something and run with it. I think that's the age group. I think if you find access to talent at that age, right? I don't think so, because people, you studied in a college, people, you have friends whom you are playing around with and stuff like that, whom you're hanging out with, right? So, and if they like you and if they want to join your hands and stuff like that, right? It's I mean, given where we are, right? It is like setting up a Ganesh Pandal in the colony. Bunch of the same age group people come together and set it up. It's like, I mean, it's a pseudo startup journey, right? The kind of access that 18 to 20-year-old have, no, people who are 25 plus, no, don't have that kind of access to talent. And initially, and that's what counts. You need generalist, and that's what counts. And you will have super talent. It's just that you need to start believing in your friends. They're not as useless or as hopeless as you think they are. Everybody will pitch in, and everybody would contribute.
I think I had a similar story when I started off. I think, and that helps being connected. Not necessarily all of the contacts were hired by me, but I was placing them. So when I started off, all of the people I knew from college became either my candidate or my customer. And that helped me in building the startup. Obviously, I had to hire a lot of HR or talent which are being recruited, and the kind of background I carry did not matter that way. But I think what Raghu wants to say is very clearly that being a novice helps you, and being a youngster, you are so well connected with. So take it as a strength rather than a weakness. I know you are not connected with a lot of experienced talent who might whom you might want, but being connected with your own network makes a lot of difference. So be it you are 18 or be it you are 30, if your network is well utilizable, you will be successful, you will be able to hire. And that's what is the most important thing to build on. So use your network well. Whoever asked this question. There's someone who has asked this question to Rakesh. There is a whole shift in recruitment standard and it has become more structured. That's what Rakesh was saying. How is it that we see 30% attrition in the last 2 quarters? So is it because startups are able to sell themselves better than before, or is it that the inflow of talent from from fortune companies to startup is more?
Well, I think great question, and definitely recruitment process. When I was talking about structured, I was talking about recruitment process has become more structured than the way it was. I like when I was talking about, initially I said, we have seen a great shift in last 2 quarters in the way, we have seen a lot of companies becoming unicorn.
Mm-hmm.
So we have seen a lot of success stories talking about Nykaa, talking about, Dunzo, I mean, talking about Zepto, Swiggy, Instamart. We have been talking about a lot of stories. And trust me, there is always, people who were planning to switch to a startup, and these kind of, great news and this kind of change in the ecosystem has helped them in switching the job. So I always believe it's not just about 30% people joining a startup. It's also about the demand supply. I think that there was a lot of fund which has come, the company's valuation going up, the aspiration changes has come in people from being a part of a well-established company to trying their luck in a startup. And these are the few of the things which actually have helped in outgrowing a lot of startups.
Cool. So there is another question from Deepak Raj. He's the founder of a company called Yoska. He is asking for a small startup that is looking to grow, how to balance or decide between investing and mentoring the existing team to take up leadership, and whether to influx talent and senior leadership. Uh, so what to choose between them? Um, so, so is it about building the talent inside or hiring talent from outside? Is the question which Deepak is asking for. Raghu, would you like to answer that?
Hey Deepak, I hope you're doing good. I know Deepak Apuska. So I think it's a mix of both, right? It's always better to move the talent up, right, up the org structure. Right, so that is very, very important because one is they have this context. Second thing is it also gives a lot of confidence to people that if they do a great job, right, they will also get a lot of exciting opportunities, right? And it's always when you're a part of a fast-growing startup, you really need people internally to grow, right? It helps the company really well. Otherwise, if you have to really get excellent talent for each and every team within the company, then the founder's bandwidth is essentially completely compromised. Right. So speaking to so many people across different teams, right, and then waiting for their notice period, and once they come back, right, for them to get up to speed with whatever they're doing, it's a huge, and time is the only currency that we have. You can raise as much capital as you want, right, but you can't really create time. All right. So in order to really save time, and time is what we have, what we don't have in a startup. All right. It's because of which it's super imperative for us to really grow the in-group talent, right? But additionally, right, it's always important to really look out for people from outside also, right, who can provide that outside in perspective as well, because it's very difficult to estimate the impact a phenomenal guy who can bring to the startup, right? The course of the startup will completely change if you're able to get a great person on board, right? So in most of the startups that I engage with, right, hiring never stops. You're always on the lookout for people. Just like the way whenever you require somebody, you don't get a person who suits a JD. Right. So whenever there is good talent available, right, the metric that we follow is to get the good person on board, because good people will figure out they will figure out a way to contribute to the company and stuff like that. So my sense is it's not either or, it's a combination of both, and you should not overdo either one of them. Right, you need to strike a healthy mix between the two and stuff like that, and then run with it. Moving the existing folks, they will also be super happy. They'll also be extremely confident. It helps other people who are there in the organization also. There is a career path, there is a way forward, and this doesn't really happen from appraisal cycles to appraisal cycles. As the company is growing, we'll also get to grow. There's opportunity, and that opportunity itself is inspiring and motivating a lot of people. So then you have an amazing bunch of existing folks who are driven, excited, motivated, and inspired. And then new set of people come up with a different perspective who can take the company to a completely different level. So you effectively need to have a combination of both.
Good. There's one last question we'll take because I think we've already run out of time. I hope it's okay, Raghu.
Yeah, sure.
Good. So this is a very interesting question by someone anonymous. So he's talking about, like, these are times where there are a lot of layoff and there is a lot of talks about recession happening. And a lot of times candidates are getting wary about being part of startups. So how do you attract or convince interesting top talent to be a part of your startup? Because everybody will say, okay, am I at risk? And risk is one of the very important factors when you specifically hire more senior talent, because they are little risk averse. I think they want to avoid risk. So how do you convince, or how do you attract talent during such times, specifically being a startup?
So should Rakesh take a first state at it?
Yeah, I'm fine, Rakesh or Raghu taking it.
I'm fine.
Rakesh.
I think Raghu would be the right person. Yeah, definitely I can put my inputs.
Sure. See, the thing about being a startup and stuff like that, right? It's about how open or transparent the founders are, right, with respect to what is really happening about the company and stuff like that, right? If you're talking about senior leaders, leadership within the company and stuff like that, right? Most of the founders, what they do is they put them in front of the board also. Right, so that they have a good perspective of what is the status of the financial health of the company, right? Not just from the founders, but also essentially get access to the board members as well, right? Most of the senior leadership that we hire, right, so has to go through the board also as part of the interview round, right? So they have the one-on-one relationship with the board also, and they can possibly do that, right? But right, if you're part of such kind of a startup and stuff like that, right? So and I've seen 2 to 3 cycles now, right? So I've realized that the only thing that is a reality is the cycle, right? 2021 is not the reality. 2022 will also going to be not be the reality, but the sign whenever there is a 21, there is a 22, right? Wherever there was a 2015, there was a 2016. Where was it 2008, there was a 2011 and 12 also, right? I've seen that, right? That there are always cycles, right? And it all depends on how do you navigate through the cycles, right? And the job of a founder is to really navigate the ship, right? In 2021, if you don't open your sales, right, it's the wrong thing to do, right? When the winds are blowing, you need to open up your sails, right? When you're getting a lot of tailwind, right, open up your sails so that you can move faster, right? When the winds have changed, right, so you need to drop the, right, when rough sea, right, you don't necessarily open up your sails. You have to really figure out a way to navigate. But if the senior leaders are in the basement of the ship, they have no idea what is happening outside, right? Then there is a problem with the senior leadership, right? Or maybe a problem with the founder where they're not giving the complete visibility of that, right? So one of the best things that I learned, right? So because we build a team bottom up, right? So I always felt that the building the company or driving the company is my responsibility, right? And I always felt that if the startup tanks, given my background, right, I know that I will never sleep hungry. I have a lot of opportunities, right? But the people who came on board, right, as part of the journey, may not necessarily have the kind of opportunities, access to the kind of opportunities that I have access to. All right. So because of its failure is not necessarily an option, right? So then I need to do whatever that needs to be done, right? So because of which it would take a lot of stress to run the company. Once I started hiring leadership, right? So there was one conversation with my CFO. She came and told me that, Raghu, it's not just your responsibility, right? We are also there to shoulder the same responsibility with you. When that happens, no, you feel that you're not alone, right? Building companies is a lonely journey. And when you make that, when you feel that you're not alone, right, then you start sharing things with the leadership. So people understand, right? It's just like in any marriage, right? So there are tough times and there are good times and stuff like that, right? As long as the communication between the partners are open, right? So people go through the things together, right? And you need company when things are rough. Good times, it's very easy, right? So you have a lot of fair weather friends, right? When the things set up, that's when you do game. And that's when the leadership really makes a huge difference. So that's how you navigate, how transparent you are, how open you are, and how do you shoulder responsibilities? How do you share responsibility? How do you shoulder responsibility, right? How do you together navigate the thing, right? So it's not having a senior leadership during the downtime is a challenge, right? If you really make the relationship work, right, it's a huge boon. It's a huge plus to navigate that, right? And as long as people are able to build that kind of a camaraderie, that kind of a relationship between the founders and the senior leaders, right? So then each one has their own company. Nothing will come as a surprise to anybody, right? So then everybody will take anything that comes on their chin and run with it. And that's what I've learned being part of being engaged with multiple startups and engaged in the ecosystem across multiple cycles. So that's what I've learned.
Rakesh, your perspective?
Yes, I think I have a very live example. Few days back, I have witnessed something like this. So I believe when we read this media news, a layoff, we already have a perspective what has happened. Everyone has been fired, and we don't understand who has been laid off or who has been asked to leave. So first thing is, I mean, whosoever has asked this question, I think let's communicate. Let's say I'm an employer and a prospective employer for Raghu, and I heard that Zolve or any of the companies is going to do some layoff. Let's first understand where that layoff is going to happen. Is it in the operation team? Is it in the customer success team? Is it in the contractor who he was having, and now he already has built up a team, so he wants to let go to contractors, right? So the first most important thing is know where this layoff is happening. And a lot of time, correction is also taken as layoff. I mean, a lot of time companies does it, bottom 1% people who have not been performing, who have not been doing great, or maybe they were not culturally fitting, has been asked to leave. That kind of corrections are being done in a lot of companies. And I have observed that a single message goes in the news that this company has laid off. So my prospect would be, it's great that we communicate to the right people. I mean, if we are going to be the prospective employee or the future employee of that company, talk in depth, understand what has happened, and get the right information, because whatever comes in news is not always true. And I am telling you a true example wherein one of the company has laid off the temp employees, around 50 temp employees they have laid off. And the reason was they have already built up their internal team. And they were hiring a CTO because they are already having a good tech team internally. And this news went in market so brutal that this company has laid off more than 50 of their tech employees. And when we spoke to them, say it was never laid off. They were on a third-party payroll, and the project was over, and we asked them to leave. Right. So getting the right information, communicating, understanding where things are going is very important. Like Raghu was saying, being in the basement is not important. You have to see what's the direction of the wind.
Cool. So I think we are all done for the day. I would like to thank Raghu and Rakesh for being part of this session. And yeah, over to you, Prithvi.
Thank you so much, Anuj. That was really a very insightful session. So I thank all the speakers for making third episode of this talks a very grand success. And thank you participants for attending. We really appreciate you being here. So we'll be sharing a feedback link post this webinar, and we are more than happy to take any valuable suggestions for improvements. Thanks again for joining today, and we will see you next time with yet another episode of Zest Talks on October 14, 2022. Thank you so much and have a great evening.
Thanks, Raghu. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thanks, Prithvi. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Raghu. See you. Bye.